Hi, Cory. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I already feel like we're already getting off on a successful foot. Like success is the theme and it's happening. We're already doing it.
I agree. I think this is going to be a great episode. I'm so looking forward to you sharing all of this is something we have not talked about at all on this podcast yet. And I think it is something so important, so unique, and something that would be really helpful for anybody listening. So I'm really excited to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Cool. It's a pleasure. And anytime, I'm working with integrative health practitioners, the goal is to demystify law, to take something that's typically a pretty heavy and overwhelming and what seems like a stressful sort of topic and just make it super relatable and practicable and find a way for everyone to apply it to their business, either if it's a business that you've already started or if it's a business that you're thinking of starting. I'm here to be of service and provide information.
Yes. And we were kind of joking before we started recording and I was like, and you are a lawyer. And you kind of were like, oh, I'm glad that I don't look like the assuming lawyer role. And so I can already tell that I'm sure your clients love working with you because you don't have like that buttoned up suit and tie, stuffy kind of, lawyer feel about you. And I'm sure you're a blast to work with.
Yeah, Julia, the actual question that you asked me was, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? And so I was talking about all of the, all the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. And then you were like, oh, but are you a lawyer? I was like, yes, I am a lawyer. The good news is that I didn't really have to try to manufacture this type of personality for my work. When I started working with health and wellness professionals, I did so because those were the people I connected best with. I was a group fitness instructor. I had studied all these sort of integrative health techniques. At the time I was a vegan. And I was just like, the whole idea about me starting my business, and I'm sure with everyone else who's listening as well, is I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to put myself out there and come up with an offering in a style that's a fair representation of me and who I am. And then, law of attraction will sort of just take care of the rest in terms of bringing me the right people who want to work with a type of lawyer like who I am. And I've never really been intentional about anything that I do in the sense of like trying to be a certain way. It's more like, oh, this is what I would do anyways. And everything's sort of just taken off from there.
Yes. Okay. That's amazing. So let's back it up to the point of what do you do all day and are you a lawyer? You are a lawyer. And could you share with our listeners what it is you do in your practice? You've kind of touched upon who you serve and who your mostly clientele base is, but give us a little look as to what you do on a daily basis and who you're working with.
I hope everyone's wearing a seatbelt because I'm going to talk to you about the day-to-day lifestyle of a lawyer, and you better be strapped in because you're going to hear me speak and you're going to think, wow, that's the craziest, most exciting lifestyle I've ever heard. So
I'm buckling up. I'll put my seatbelt on.
Cool. Seatbelt's on. Probably on a day-to-day basis, what I do is I work with different clients who everyone works under the umbrella of health and wellness and fitness. And typically the day would be divided between half of the time speaking with new clients, understanding about their businesses, what their goals are, what sort of relationships they have, and answering any legal questions that they have and coming up with a game plan or a roadmap with them to be at best legal practices. And one big thing that I've realized from a lot of my clients, especially those just starting or those who are looking to start, is that a lot of the times not having that legal framework in place subconsciously will hold them back. Where they're like, I'm really good at what I do. I've studied, I've got the qualifications, I've helped, my best friend and my second cousin and my kitten. And they all had such a wonderful experience working together, but I'm sort of afraid to put myself out there because if I do so, I don't know, once I start working with strangers, am I going to get sued? What's going to happen? What sort of process do I have to properly onboarding clients so that I feel confident and secure? So part of probably 50% of my job is speaking with clients, understanding the nuances of their particular practice, what their goals are, what their objectives are, and then coming up with a legal game plan for them. And then the other half on a daily basis would be drafting documents. This is like really where things get exciting. So it would be editing documents, making sure that things are customized towards clients so that they can be protected, and then supporting clients and using it. And it's a very bizarre, strange thing that I'm very passionate about. When I was growing up, I didn't think that I was going to be drafting legal documents as a career, but I sort of love it. And the coolest feeling for me is knowing that by virtue of the work that I'm doing, clients are protected and that clients feel protected. And then once they are protected and feel protected, they're more comfortable to go out and build their practice, build their community, make the world a healthier place. So usually I have that pay it forward mentality in my mind if it ever gets too boring drafting documents. And so that's it, Julia. All the wildest fantasies about what being a lawyer is like, I just revealed all of them to you. And that is what I do on a day-to-day basis. Okay.
It's riveting. And being on this side, I actually do think it's exciting because I think even though I work for a company who has all those legal things in order, I've often wondered, okay, how do these people who just get started, are they getting sued? Could they get sued? I mean, I wonder if it's scary to do that. So I've even had those thoughts of my own, wondering about other, colleagues of mine who go out on their own. And so it is kind of interesting to me because it's a huge part that you have to think of. And I think you're absolutely right that subconsciously it could hold people back from starting, or at least thinking that they could start.
Yeah, that's it. And the answer to your question is yes, it definitely is possible that people can get sued. Liability is a real thing, especially when you're working as a coach and especially when you're working within health. And unfortunately, when you think about the life of an entrepreneur, no one gives you a book. Well, I guess actually, if they're enrolled in a program, they probably would receive some sort of a book or manual. But at least on the legal sense, no one's like, oh, cool, you're starting your own business. Well, here are all the things that you need to know. And this is what should be in a waiver of liability. And this is, the benefits of registering an LLC or a company are as follows. No one has access to that. So it is real. And unfortunately, you're right that a lot of people don't have access to those resources, which is why I love sharing the information and being of service and trying to make it a little bit more comfortable for everyone.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious, did the love of health come first, or did the law degree come first? And at some point they obviously collided, but which kind of came first? Did you know that when you started law, this was the kind of law you wanted to go into, or did it kind of just organically happen? I think you kind of touched upon it at the beginning, but I'm curious.
Yeah, it was a path for sure. Being a lawyer, even the decision to go to law school, then when you're in law school, and then afterwards, what do you do? That in and of itself is a whole other story. The answer is that health came first, and I started practicing yoga in law school because there are aspects of law school which are not so much fun. It can be a highly competitive environment. You're very uncertain. You question yourself. You doubt yourself. You're studying with all of these people who are really intelligent. And I found a lot of comfort in my breath and in stretching and just having that silent time. But health and sports has been a big part of my life. I did a master's degree in sport management. I worked in the NFL for a couple of years. So I sort of had a whole career before I got into law. And then there were a couple of really, really important moments for me in my young law career. Once I graduated, I started job shadowing a whole bunch of different lawyers. And I was for criminal law, I was first in my class in a couple of the classes around criminal law. I loved it. I was so interested in it. And I spent one morning in a Vancouver courthouse with a guy, and that was enough. He was borderline alcoholic, just all the bad stereotypes of what you would think. And he's like, you don't want this. You don't want to be doing this. So look, I could have gone to see a bunch of different criminal lawyers and made the decision, but sort of after that experience, it was enough. And then I was like, cool, I'll go to corporate law. And I went to big corporate law. I wore a suit every day. I was in the fanciest buildings, going for fancy lunches and all the things that you'd imagine, and it sucked. And my first client that I worked for was a tobacco company, and I was supposed to come up with evidence around why smoking was not unhealthy. And I was like, really? Is this actually what I did all that studying for, to be in this particular position? And then after a couple of jobs in law, I just got to the point where I was like, well, travel's always been my biggest passion. And at that time I was starting a yoga festival, and I loved going to different health and wellness festivals and being part of that community. And so I was like, cool, I'm just going to book a one-way ticket to go travel and take my law firm online. And if it happens that nobody wants to work with me, or that no one's interested, or whatever it is, I can just fly back and be depressed working in a big office building, and at least I'll know that I've tried. And I'm still on that same trip. Like, it was 4 years ago, I bought a one-way ticket, and thankfully I'm still going. What we do and how we do it has improved tremendously. The sheer volume of clients that we work for has increased tremendously, but at the source of it, it's still that same feeling of demystifying law, making it accessible, empowering clients, and just giving them the peace of mind and security to go off and build their own communities. And so, yeah, it's been a trip. Certainly when I started, I never intended for things to be this way, but it's cool when you find your own way of doing things, and then, the market responds accordingly, and like, oh, this is a fresh new way of doing things that people probably would enjoy. That's sort of where I am today. Yeah.
Wow. What a story. And I think probably just like you resonate more with working with clients who are like in the health and wellness space, right? You'd rather do that because that's a passion of yours than defending a tobacco company. I'm sure clients of yours love working with a lawyer who kind of sees their value in the world, right? Instead of kind of some guy that's like, wait, what do you do again? They're able to kind of be, validated in their place in the world. You see their importance. It sounds like such the perfect match. So I'm sure you're wonderful at what you do.
Thank you. And that's it. And the coolest thing about contrast in life is that it took 2 years of me working in big law to realize that, like, the lawyers weren't happy and the clients weren't happy. And the same thing would always happen. A client would come in, they would pay a lot of money, and they would leave without having any understanding or education of what was going on. They were using these documents that they didn't understand, that were written in words that didn't make sense to them. And I was just like, at least I'm going to try to do it differently. I don't know if it's going to work, but in principle, it should work, because people should feel like they understand at least what they're getting their clients to sign. At a base level that should be taking place. So the thing that when I started and how I look at everything that I do is like, I want to be the type of lawyer that I would want to work with. And so I think of that with everything. I have business coaches, I have health coaches, and when I'm working with people, I'm always thinking like, oh, this is the exact person who I want to work with. What is it about them that attracts me to them? What is it about the way that they do their work that inspires me? And so I'm always just sort of taking notes on how to provide the best experience possible for people. And also you've hit the nail on the head. It's like, people want to be seen, people want to be supported. And especially when we're working in sort of like fringe health offerings. And when I say fringe, I mean typically like non-certifiable, non-accredited by the government or by a governmental body, right? A lot of my clients do healing and health work that is not necessarily recognized by mainstream government. And so they think it's awesome that there's a lawyer who cares for them and is taking a stand for what they're doing as well. And yeah, I guess I'm a holistic health practitioner in my own way, unstudied, but I probably do a lot of things health related that other people, mainstream society, would think is weird, but that's just because it makes sense to me.
Yes. Yeah, of course. So I'd love to switch gears a little bit and so you named Demystify. There was 2 others, the 3 things that you kind of like to get health coaches or anybody working in the health and wellness space to understand as far as what you present to them for information and what you can offer them. And out of those 3, what do you think the biggest thing for somebody who might be listening to this podcast? They want to start a business. They're worried about the legal aspects. How do you get from A to B? Like, what are some of the main things that you think somebody new to this space should understand?
The most important thing to understand is always understand what relationship you're in. So the way that I coach clients, or the way that I teach clients, will be like, look, and you're operating as your business, and there's an exercise where you put your name in the middle of a piece of paper and you draw a line to all the different relationships that you have legally, right? So whether it's you individually, or if you're going to register a separate legal entity, you put that in the middle of the page. Let's say you're renting out a physical space and you've signed a lease. You have a legal relationship with your landlord. Let's say there's someone that you share the space with. Maybe you have a co-rental agreement with someone else. You obviously have a relationship with your clients. So that would be one. Let's say you're going to bring on a team, or you have other people who are working with you in some other capacity. You have a relationship with them. And really, in the most pragmatic sense, the goal of law is to communicate your expectations openly and honestly in each of those relationships. And that's how, if we're talking about a practical takeaway today for everyone, even just that exercise. What are the different legal relationships that I have? Have I communicated my expectations openly and honestly in that relationship? And then within that relationship, are there any specific legal nuances that I should be aware of? And when it comes to communicating expectations openly and honestly, like, one lesson that I've learned from having done this for years and, working with hundreds and hundreds of clients all over the world, the problems will arise when there is an expectation which was not communicated between the parties. So the whole purpose of the document, it's not like, look, if a legal issue arises, and like outside of waiver of liability stuff, outside of someone suffering significant damages and having their lifestyle changed, like, let's just say day to day outside of that particular situation. What I've observed in working with so many different people is that the problems will always come up because one person thought something, another person thought something else. They never communicated around it. And then a misunderstanding comes to a front around what was not communicated. So really the purpose of the documents is to let people know, like, cool, we're going to be working together. This is exactly what you can expect. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is how you're going to pay. If you need to reschedule, this is how it's going to work. If you want to cancel, if you believe that, you are entitled to certain guaranteed results, this is our policy around that. And then just when a problem arises and you have customized specific documents for you and your business, it's so easy to resolve the situation. It's like you literally take a screenshot of your computer and like, hey, we told you it was 72 hours to reschedule an appointment. You did so 48 hours before. I'm really sorry, but this appointment is considered paid and occupied and whatever it is. And when it's also like the other point of the documents is when you're able to non-emotionally explain something to someone, their reaction is very different, as opposed to, a he said, she said, pointing finger match. No, but this, or I'm upset, or you promised. It's like, hey, before we started working together, I asked you to sign this agreement. You read the agreement, you signed it, and the agreement explicitly states that you were going to do X, that you would follow the protocols that we provided to you in order to get results, and you haven't been following them. And so I'm very much a practical lawyer, and like we could talk all day about the theory of law, but what I care about and what I think is most important is clients to understand on a practical level of day to day what they need. And really the simplest thing that you can do is understand the relationships, communicate your expectations openly and honestly in each of those relationships.
Yes, which is such a simple and easy to digest way to think about it. But I never would have been able to get there in my head myself, right? And so like, that's why we believe, especially, with what we do, everybody needs a professional to help them with every angle of, we need a professional maybe for our health. We need a professional to help us with, whatnot, our taxes. And you're just like that legal professional that can help somebody conceptualize the simplicity. I'm thinking you're going to help us understand the complexity of law, but you actually did the exact opposite, which was way more helpful. And you helped us understand the simplicity of how it really can be understood.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like, again, coming back to that idea of, I want to work with the accountant who I want to work with. So to me, my accountant is going to say, Cory, give me access to your bookkeeping software, forward all of your expenses to this robot email address, and I'm going to tell you how much you have to pay in taxes. And I don't want, if he were to start and being like, honest truth, I've never read or understood an Excel spreadsheet in my entire life. I'm 35 years old. It's not going to happen. I'm just going to die without ever having opened and used Excel. But if I worked with the type of accountant who was like, well, Cory, let's look at this spreadsheet, the cell X3, I would be like, dude, what are you? No, just tell me what I need to be to be paying the least amount of tax properly, and give me just let me know what I have to do for it. And so the reason why I don't make it complex is because A, for me, the complexities are boring, and B, people don't need to get overwhelmed or feel more uncomfortable around a complex area. They just need to know that everything's taken care of and that they can feel confident in that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, so important. And the complexity of it is oftentimes what's most overwhelming. And it could get you right back to the same place that you were trying to get them out of in the beginning, which is kind of just demystifying it and moving on and letting them do their most important work, which is showing up and supporting people's health and wellness.
Yeah, whatever way possible I can get people using our agreements, I'll go for it, because it's like, firstly, it's a service that's done for you. But for me, it's like, cool, answer these questions. We're going to get you these documents. We're going to show you how to use them and where to upload them and all that stuff. And like, I don't want this to take more than 2 hours of your life, and go on Instagram, do Instagram lives, do the things that you love, write a great email to your newsletter group, get more clients, spend more time researching a niche area that you want to learn about. Because like the reality is, and I take no offense to it, it's like nobody wants to be thinking about law on a day-to-day basis. It's the only way that people typically think about it is like, oh no, I'm going to get sued, or oh no, I copied someone else's agreements. What's going to happen? And so we're just trying to alleviate people from those feelings.
Yes. Okay. That's such great information. Okay. So now I'm curious about this kind of new thing that you've launched, which you are so graciously going to extend free to our listeners. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's all about?
Yeah, I made an online course maybe like a year after starting my own legal practice, because what I realized is I was just having the same conversations over and over and over again with clients. And then obviously the pandemic happened, and then I was having the same conversations, but they were different types of conversations. So we came up with an online course that's called Don't Get Sued: Legal Essentials for Health and Fitness Professionals. And it's sort of just like a COVID version of the legal basics of what you need to know and what's changed in the past 2 years around, operating as a small business owner, entrepreneur in the health and fitness space. So yeah, if any of the information that I shared today was helpful, or you'd like to learn more, the online course is a great resource to understand on your own pace and on your own terms what the major areas that you need to be concerned about are. Because as much as it is a very, very complex, like law can be incredibly complex, these are like, I think there's 7 or 8 modules, and like, cool, all of my clients have the same question about this issue, and this is what the answer is, and this is what you can do about it, basically.
Yep. Okay. That's great. We'll link that in the show notes for everybody to access. So I'm curious, based on kind of what you just said, are there specific things that changed from like pre-pandemic to kind of, what was the biggest thing that you saw change that kind of created some sort of obstacle for people in our space?
The 2 biggest thing is, one is the services being offered online. So remember I said that the goal for each relationship is to communicate expectations openly and honestly. What happened is the way that everyone offers their services now is different than how they offered their services in the past. Mm. So the biggest problem that I was having to fix on a day-to-day basis was clients were using their old agreements, offering their services in a new way, running into problems around it, and then asking me why. And I was like, well, your business, the way that you operate your business is completely different now than it was before. So that's one thing, just like obviously the shift to online. Within that, there are nuances of like pre-recorded materials, online classes, doing things outdoors in different spaces. Like the agreements need to be specific to what it is that you're doing. And then secondly, just like the collection of personal information in the amount of third-party websites that small business owners will use. They're not always aware that, they need to have a privacy policy. They need to disclose that information about what they're collecting, how they're using it. That's like super boring legal stuff, but it's also like very real. And I've had clients who've had their systems hacked and, have had all sorts of trouble because they didn't have all of those privacy policies and online documents in place. And then just lastly, I've just seen a lot of issues around trademarks because the nature of how everything has evolved over time is that it used to be like, okay, I'm a health coach or health practitioner, and I'm based in Monument, Colorado. And most of my clients are based in Monument as well. So I see them and I've got a really cool name called Conscious Counsel Coaching, whatever. But now because of Instagram and because consumer behavior has changed in terms of everything going online, people will it's easier for someone to find a cool business name or something they think is awesome and then try to steal it or register the trademark on their own. So those are probably, you asked for one, but those are probably the three biggest issues that I see have changed the most since the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing three. Those were definitely great. I'm curious if there is one or more. What are the most common mistakes that you see? Now, it might be that they just simply don't know what they're supposed to, but what are the most common mistakes that you see coaches or trainers or make initially?
Using a templated document, or either copying someone else's document, using a templated document, or using something that doesn't fit their business specifically. And it's just, as a lawyer, I've been hired to challenge waivers of liability, and I've been hired to defend waivers of liability. And I can tell you, if you're using a legal document, it's almost the equivalent of not using one, because the way the legal system works is if somebody wants to sue you, if somebody wants to scare you, if somebody wants to come after you, all they really have to do is pay a smart lawyer to kick up a lot of sand and make a mess for you. And ultimately, the thing that you're going to be relying on is that document. So that's the one most common mistake where people are like, oh, I got it from my cousin's wife. Let me use her documents. And so now I'm using them. But it's like going hiking with someone else's shoes. It just doesn't fit.
Yes. Yeah. Or even, I know some people that will sometimes, they have a lawyer in the family who does real estate law, and they have them, right up there. They're like non-compete or something, it's a different kind of law that they're practicing on a day-to-day basis. And it's somebody that doesn't necessarily, is creating a document that's not specific to what they're doing.
Yeah. And I would never, ever, 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 ever touch a real estate document. I wouldn't ask a real estate lawyer what they do on a day-to-day, what their day-to-day looks like. I would just avoid that question. Me
neither. Yeah. I bet it does not nearly as exciting as what you're doing. And I'm sure they're not on their journey 4 years in.
They're probably not on a journey, but it must be very, very, yeah. They probably get to negotiate prices on behalf of their client, which could be cool.
Yes. Yeah, but it's probably a very similar thing day in and day out. So actually, I do want to touch upon the journey part, because I think that for anybody listening who's been on their own, we have a lot of people who listen who've been, nurses, or they've been in banking, and they're all of a sudden realizing that that's a job very much like probably you sitting in that law firm defending the tobacco company, that those jobs are no longer fulfilling them, and they want to do something that actually adds meaning to their life. And it's kind of, quote unquote, scary, or it can be daunting to kind of go from A to B. Is there any sources of inspiration that you can offer that you've either learned or overcome on, going from one set of law to now what you're doing and kind of doing it in such a free-spirited kind of way?
I think this is going to be really strange advice, but it's something that was really important for me. I saw a couple of people who were not doing a similar thing. They were doing a similar thing in their own way, but it wasn't too similar. But anyways, they sort of sucked at what they were doing, with all due respect. Like it was when, and they were succeeding, and there were people who were successful, who were building, cool law firms that to me, I looked at it, I'm like, this could be so much better than it currently is. So one piece of mind that I think everyone can take is like, if you look and you see someone who's doing something and you're like, I could do better than that, like this can be done better, I would say believe in that, and just like have the peace of mind to know that like, okay, well, someone who, isn't really great or is doing really well at this. So obviously, because I'm really great, and obviously having that self-belief is important. It's sort of like it gave me permission to do it when I saw someone who wasn't doing it that well, but was succeeding. I was like, oh, okay, this isn't that scary if this person's able to do it. And then I think the other thing that's really important is not caring what other people say, especially at the beginning as you're starting. I played on a soccer team in Vancouver when I was working at a big law firm, and I had told people my idea. I was like, yeah, well, I want to work with yogis and health professionals, and I'm going to do it online. And everyone on the team was a lawyer. Everyone's like, it'll never work. Where are you going to get blah, 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 every reason about why it wouldn't work. And the truth is, if I listened to them, then I wouldn't have built what I've built and continue to build what I'm building. And so the most important thing to all of us is that voice inside of our head that's like, no, you should do this. And even if, my partner, my friends, or whoever it is doesn't believe in it, your community is out there, and they're waiting for you to make that specific offering in that specific way. But it's only going to resonate when you really do it on your own terms and in a way that you believe is the right way to do it. And then the last thing I would just say is that the perspective always has to be that everything is a learning. And the assumption that you're going to start right off the bat and like, oh, it's going to be perfect and it's going to be amazing, and I'm going to offer great customer service and have great back end plus marketing and all my accounting books in order. Like, no, just give up that idea that all of it's going to be great, and just say like, oh, well, the only way that I'm going to be able to learn is if I start trying to do it, and just, be patient with yourself and honor yourself for making a courageous effort to do what you feel is the change in the world. And if you, if you go for it and it doesn't work, you went for it. And that's to me, that's the important thing in life. It's like, it's not the successes more than it's the effort, and it's the principle, the virtue of the reason behind why you're trying to do something.
Yes. Yeah. And letting go of it has to work or it has to be glamorous while I am doing it. Like, just the fact that you're doing it is the important part, and the outcome, I always say like, well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And, what you said that at the beginning, you're like, if it didn't work, I was going to go back and do, work at a big company. And so you always think about worst case scenario. And if you can kind of just put that aside and know, I'm going to go for it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and alleviate, again, the pressure of having to have it be perfect and glamorous in the process, I think takes the pressure off of, the performance piece of it, and just starting is the most important thing.
Yeah. And then always just remembering like nothing serious is going on. Even for me as a lawyer, like something will happen, whatever. And I'm just like, okay, well, nothing serious is really going on here. Nobody's hurt. Everything's going to be fine. There's nothing serious that's going on here. Someone may be having some form of reaction to something, but nothing serious is really going on. And like, we get to choose the story in our mind about the things that are happening. And for me, a helpful narrative is like nothing serious is going on, because it makes everything playful. And then, a hiccup in part of your entrepreneurial journey becomes something fun and a lesson. And instead of like, oh my God, it's the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. Just being light about things in general to me makes it more fun. Yes.
I think that's such an important piece of it too, because I think we can all get wrapped up in the seriousness and, the stress of the world. And if you do have like a mantra like that, because inevitably things will go wrong. Things aren't going to be perfect. And so when something does go wrong, having something that you say to yourself to remind yourself that, yeah, this isn't as serious as it seems, or you can make it as serious as you want to, is an important reminder.
Yeah. Nothing serious is going, not even this. I hate to tell you, Julia, but like this podcast, there's nothing serious going on right now.
Nothing serious. We are not having any fun at all. There's nothing.
No, we are having fun. I'm definitely having fun.
So what is the name of the course that we're going to list it in the show notes?
Yeah.
It's How Not to Get Sued.
It's Don't Get Sued. Legal Essentials for Health and Wellness, Health and Fitness Practitioners, I believe.
Okay. And where can our listeners find out more? So like a website, social media, any places where you kind of show up, where can they find you? Yeah,
our website, consciouscounsel.ca, our Instagram is Conscious Counsel. You can include my email address, Cory@consciouscounsel.ca. So anyone can reach out to me. And if you need any support, we've got a team happy to help. And to make this journey fun and to give you the peace of mind that you don't have to worry or stress or think about it. Like what I can tell everyone who's listening, whatever you are going through, what you've gone through legally, we've been through it already. We've been through it 10 times already, and nothing serious is going on. There's a solution. It's going to be fine. We're going to get you organized and everything will be in perfect working order. And then you'll be on your way to continuing to build your dream business.
Okay. Thank you so much for being on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. I think this has been invaluable information for our listeners. And I thank you for delivering it in such a fun and nothing serious kind of way so that everybody could, again, I think take a topic that when you're not familiar with law can seem, daunting and overwhelming. And it's good to know that there's people approaching it a little less daunting out there.
Cool. That's me. That's us.
All right. We'll look forward to being in touch soon. And thanks again so much for being on.
Ciao. Thanks for having me.
Bye, Cory.